Welcome, everyone. I'm Val Walker, and I'm a blogger for Psychology Today. And I also blog locally in the Boston area for the Health Story Collaborative. I'm the author of two books, The Art of Comforting and 400 Friends and No One to Call. And I really am happy to be involved with our storytelling project. As a survivor of trauma and loss myself, I've always found my sense of wonder to be a healing force. But I didn't realize how important it was until more recently when so much research started coming out from the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley and the American Psychological Association. And fortunately, there's a lot of research to show that our personal, really private, sometimes very spiritual experiences that we often keep to ourselves are much more valuable than we might realize in our healing process. So, with that said, there are three things Robyn and I, who co-host our video series, really hope to get out of our Healing with Wonder project. And that is number one, that storytelling is healing in its own right, that finding meaning in our stories and experiences is really healing. Just telling the story that's number one. And number two, experiences of awe and wonder, even if it's brief or fleeting or just 30 seconds, that experiences of awe like that are powerful and healing in themselves. And number three, that as we tell our stories and find the common ground around our awe and wonder experience, our wonder stories, the more we build on that we're building community. We're building community, and wonderful YouTube and platforms like this are a way to build community around telling our stories like this. So welcome, and I'm so delighted to have Robyn and Luke here today.
Thanks so much, Val. Yeah, it's amazing how once we start rolling this and the stories start coming, how more and more stories will come out and people will want to share. So I'm really excited about that. Hi,
Yeah.
everybody. I'm Robyn Houston-Bean. I am the founder of the Sun Will Rise Foundation. We are a peer-focused nonprofit that specializes in grief due to substance use related losses. I started that nonprofit in 2015 after the death of my son, Nicholas, who was 20 years old. And I became involved in this project when Val brought it up because I have sat with so many grievers who have shared these stories, not in an organized fashion like we're doing now, but within our peer grief support groups. And as soon as she started mentioning them, I said, oh my gosh, do we have stories to talk about? And every time someone tells that story, it's like a really like a bonding experience. And it's also this like contagious awe and wonder that I get and the other group members get from when they share their stories. So thanks for doing this and being here. So
Thanks for having me, Val and Robyn. I really appreciate it. I have great respect for the work both of you do. I've been fortunate enough to meet you in person, Robyn, at the last two SADOD conferences, and those have been really great experiences. And recently I met you, Val, because I interviewed you for a story in the newsletter that I edit. I'm the communications manager for SADOD. SADOD stands for Support After Death by Overdose. And I edit two newsletters a month. One of them is the SADOD feed, which is for direct service providers and people who work in outreach organizations, community organizations. And the other one is called Voices. And that is specifically for bereaved people who are bereaved by the death of a loved one to substance use. So I was intrigued by this when I interviewed you about healing through awe and wonder, because I've been observing these instances in other people and in my experience pretty much my whole life. And as somebody who's a writer, I'm also a songwriter. I started a band called King Rat in 1994. So my band just turned 30. So I've been in this band longer than I haven't been in this band. And a lot of my songs come from observing instances like this, and a lot of them I come up with in the dream state, and a lot of them I pick up through conversation with other people. Someone will say something about an instance of awe and wonder that I'll ask for permission to explore and ask them more about their experience and take notes and write a song about their experience. Because although I will write more about myself, I've, for the time being, I think I've exhausted that as a song topic for now. As
Mhm.
life goes on and you accrue experiences, then more songs come out of that. But I'm also the author of a fantasy fiction sci-fi novel called The Belcher. It's about a prolific beer drinker who uses supersonic belches to fight crime. And that was the suggestion of my wife, because I was trying to write another book and I was not emotionally prepared for that just yet. And we'll get
Mhm.
into that um, as I tell my story. So
Yeah.
um, I'm going to go ahead and launch into that. Uh,
Okay.
I firmly believe the thing that got me my job after 4 interviews with SADOD was my experience with an organization called SNAP, which stands for Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. And
Oh, yeah.
there's numerous chapters in the Boston area and Massachusetts at large, but there's also a Colorado chapter where I'm at. But I was raised Catholic, and I went to a Catholic school from first through 8th grade. And around the 3rd grade, when I was becoming an altar boy, the grooming started. And I'm not going to get too gruesome on the details, but Father Phil molested me. I was raped by a Catholic priest when I was 11, and
Mm.
it did some really significant physical, emotional, and psychological damage.
Yeah.
And the, the abuse was one instance physically, but he also terrorized me repeatedly until the age of 14 through threatening phone calls if I ever told anybody he was going to kill me.
Mhm.
So uh, I did not like that. So fast forward to a few years later, um, I was 18, and my brother, who was 19, were Irish twins, meaning for 1 week every year we're the same age. And he was in a rollover accident. The car lost control, flipped in from end. He flew out the windshield, hit the pavement, broke his pelvis and his spine, and was in the ICU. And he was not expected to live. They expected for him to perish.
Mm.
And so I was in there with him, just kind of sitting there spending time. And they sent in a priest to give him last rites. Well, guess who they sent in to give him last rites?
Oh, no.
He had changed his name by then because he had gotten in trouble for doing to other kids what he did to me. So they sent him to a rehabilitation facility in northern New Mexico, and then he was the head of the congregation in the parish where I went to school, but then he was demoted to a hospital chaplain under a different name. But it was the same guy. I have that. I know it was because he recognized me immediately when he came into the room to give my brother last rites. And something erupted in me, driven by rage and emotion and the desire to. I did not want him to have access to my brother. We did not need that.
Mm-hmm.
And I yelled with a force of emotion and rage that probably shook the rafters of the place. And I said, "No, you get the F out of here. We don't want your last rites." screw you, leave. I did not say it in that register or that octave. I screamed it with everything I had. And he kind of turned white and just kind of backed out of the room. And then the door closed. And from behind me, I heard my brother's voice. He goes, "Hey, what the hell was that?" So that screaming event somehow pulled him out of his coma.
My God.
And he was supposed to die. They said there's no way. This guy is toast. But that event was a catalyst or a stupefying coincidence, but I see it as the former.
Mhm.
That eruption of emotion from me somehow shook him out of that coma. And I went to his bedside and he goes, "What was that?" And I just said, "Nothing. That was nothing. Don't you worry about it." Because he protected me my all through high school. He was the big brother, and I was a shrimp with a big mouth. I didn't grow until I was 22. I finally filled out to look just like him, but it took long. It took too long for me, at least. But um, that instance demonstrated to me that it is really important for me to stand up for myself, to vocalize my observations and my emotions, and to call out authority and speak truth to power. And that was the germ, the genesis of my career as a lead singer in a punk rock band, because that's what punk rock music is. We're shaking our fist in the face of authority and saying, "No, you don't get to think for me. You don't get to tell me what to do. I'm going to come to my own conclusions through my own research, and I'm not being a snot-nosed little rebel. I'm being somebody who's utilizing my faculties of critical thinking to carve out my own destiny." And so it was valuable because of that. And I've thought, I think about that instance all the time when I feel like someone or some organization that I might be involved with might be trying to compromise me or subjugate me in some way. And I draw upon that as an example, and for to stir up the necessary nerve to confront people who have nefarious intentions for what, what they want my experience to be. So that was a profound instance of awe and wonder, because I was in awe that he came out of the coma, and I always wonder what 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 was the exact energy transfer, and I suppose I'll never know, and I don't really need to know. I don't need to know the particulars on an atomic level or a cellular level. All I know is that it happened, and it was of all my instances of awe and wonder, that one is stand out for sure. So that was I just recently told my brother about that. To this
Oh
day,
my
up
gosh.
until about 2 months ago, we would try to talk about that era of our lives because we both suffered childhood trauma. When I would try to breach the topic, he would very skillfully, I might add, deflect and pivot to get out of it because he doesn't want to talk about it. But he's recently started dealing with the childhood trauma that we both suffered through, and I was able to tell him that story, and
Mm.
it was it was deeply meaningful to me because I've been trying to open up that topic with him for years, and I was finally able to. And it was, as you said, the power in storytelling.
Mhm.
Especially telling the story to somebody who was kind of there. He was he showed up right after the event. He was there physically, but he was not conscious until the midst of that event, and that's why
Mm.
he woke up and said, "Hey, what the hell was that?" So that is my story of awe and wonder, and I really appreciate the opportunity to tell you. because I feel like people who listen to this might be encouraged to share their story and to draw power from anything that might in their life that this might remind them of, you know.
Well, it's absolutely amazing what happened, how that burst out of you just transformed something to wake him out of his coma. I mean, that to me is, we can call it awe, we can call it a miracle, we can call it amazing, whatever, but that is really at the crux. Something happened. And you know what I love that you said, Luke, that it doesn't have to all be explained in great detail, does
Yes,
it?
I
It
didn't get
doesn't
too,
have to, you know,
yeah,
it, 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 look what happened.
yeah.
Your brother came out of his coma.
The important thing is the result. And I've decided, you know, a long time ago, I decided I didn't want to diminish the power of that by trying to investigate the particulars, you know, accept it for what it is, accept it as the exceptional situation it was, and well, keep it there, hold it sacred, don't forget. But I don't need to try to get a Geiger counter and try to reenact the situation, because that's not going to help. It's not going to change the fact that it what happened. So
Mm.
I decided not to diminish the power of it all by trying to explain it, because if I'm trying to explain it, I'm trying to admit that it wasn't exceptional. So
Yeah.
I don't need an explanation. The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
I'm from your story and telling it, I mean, first, thank you for opening and sharing. You know, that is, you know, really hard sometimes to talk about these things. And I'm like picturing you there with this person here, and then how you're feeling, like seeing him, and the probably hatred is maybe a good word, like
Yeah.
fuming. And then for that guttural, you know, protective no, like for yourself, for your brother. And then for him to, your brother to respond, like what, you know, what an amazing shift in the energy and the atmosphere in that moment. It's just, when you said he spoke, I didn't know where it was going with your anger. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen. I got chills when you said that he spoke. I was like, wait, what? That's an amazing, that is amazing. Really amazing.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, we're very close, and we, you know, Irish twins as they call us. We
Mm.
were inseparable as kids. You know, we played together every day. We would eventually argue and fight every day until he turned into this beast at the age of 13. He just had this amazing growth spurt, and then he turned into my protector because I was still a shrimp through high school. But yeah, you know, I was undergoing this really intense emotional situation because that's my best friend. That's my brother. He's laying there dying in front of me, and then to augment it with this other person who caused me so much pain, but to interject that into the situation was it was something else. It was like this escalation of
And I find it
situation.
wondrous about how he ended up in the same room at that time. Like, what
I
are
don't
the
know.
that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it is. It really is. You know, and that was it took me years to seek out therapy for the abuse from the church, but that was one of the things I always thought about, because after I realized I could not outrun the trauma, I had to turn around and face it. That was something I drew upon, was that moment of confronting the priest in that instance, in that room. That was really the beginning of the therapy, even though I took about a 30-year break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't start looking for help until I was 46. So the average age is 52 when people come forth with childhood trauma. So I was a little bit ahead of the curve, but it's been, you know, it's been a hell of a journey.
Can I ask a follow-up question about your brother?
Yes.
Was he physically able to rehabilitate after the accident?
For the most part, he's had numerous surgeries. He still has back problems. His pelvis healed. It, um, he has he's a really tough, stubborn guy. So he's a hunter and an outdoorsman and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it took a couple of years, but he was able to make an almost full recovery. He still has back issues, you know, from that trauma. But anybody who goes through um, that kind of an impact, you're going to have long-term issues. He did have a knee replacement. He mangled his knee in that accident as well. So as you know, he keeps telling me, I'm just waiting for technology to catch up with my problems. So he recently had the knee replacement, which was made a huge difference in mobility. So he's out there cranking along, you know, at 110%, you know. And so I'm deeply thankful for all of that. I can't say this 100% for sure, but I'm pretty sure most people have an experience of awe and wonder, and where they're like, well, I'm not going to say that because then I'm just going to sound like I'm crazy. Not necessarily, you know. I think almost, you know, everyone's got something that stands out, that's kind of outside the norm or outside the explainable science, that makes you just wonder, you know. It gives you that sense of awe. So for anybody watching, you know, this can give them the encouragement they might need to share that story,
Yeah.
and to open themselves up to be aware of the world around you, and you might discover more on wonder, you know, even just in small things, in exchanges with people, or just observing the world around you, you know. If you're turned off to the possibility that nothing exceptional is ever going to happen to you, then, you know, I guess that's your problem. But if you are open to the possibility, then you know, you can equip yourself to perceive these things that might be happening all around you.
Well said, Luke. Gosh, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, I really
And
appreciate
sometimes
the
awe will
opportunity.
yeah, sometimes awe will slap you in the face too. That's the other thing. Like, I wasn't looking for it, and all of a sudden, wow, look what just happened to me. So, you know, if you've never experienced it, maybe someday you will too, you know.
Yeah,
It usually comes by surprise, that's for sure.
Yeah, you don't have to go digging too deep, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I'll mention before we wrap up that I am actually going to look for awe and wonder. I'm going to go on a trip next month to go see the full solar eclipse. So I can imagine being there with other people, encountering that. I am already feeling some type of, you know, giddy way about feeling this. Something that I'll never experience probably again in my lifetime, that many people never get to experience. And so everybody just, let's pray for a non-cloudy day. So
Yes.
people,
Are you
Well,
getting out of Massachusetts, Robyn, to go see that eclipse? I
yeah,
won't ask you exactly where, but I'm just wondering.
yeah, no, the path of totality is kind of far from Massachusetts, about
Right.
8 hours away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're taking a car ride to go see it.
Yeah.
Path of totality. I was trying to come up with that term because I went to I think it was 2017 or 2018 when
Yeah.
the last one was, and my uncle and aunt and I drove just one state away into Wyoming to experience that, which was pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
It was, yeah, it
so I'm
was
excited for that.
it was neat.
Very exciting, Robyn. Well, you better have, well, no, I'm just joking. I hope we get to hear a wonder story after that.
I'll bring one back.
Get your glasses ready. Don't
Yeah.
stare at that thing.
Right. Luke, what a powerful story. I'm so grateful. to hear it.
I
And
am too. Thank you for having me, Val and Robin. I really appreciate it.